The anxiousness, I suppose you could call it, came more like if I got a job, what's going to happen if I get anxious and then feel like I can't do something. And I suppose I've always referred to it as an attack of panic. I've got a friend who's a therapist. She used to I think she calls it a surge of emotion. Just don't call it a panic attack, call it a surge of emotion, because it just puts you hear the word panic attack and it just
the word
sounds
panic.
It doesn't really lend itself to helping you out of it, does it?
No.
Yeah, and they're so irrational. It's such an irrational period. I mean, the thoughts that I went through over the weekend is just like, well, what if I can't do this? What if I can't do that? And I remember having one years ago, and I was fortunate enough to get this job in Hong Kong. And I can remember sitting in my flat. My mum had come to visit, and I was just crying and crying and crying. So, even if I get myself to Hong Kong, I'm never going to be able to leave the hotel room when I get there. And I've never forgotten saying that. That makes no sense. Even if I get to Hong Kong, I won't be able to leave the hotel room when I get there. That's how irrational these things are.
So did you know that at the time you're saying it? Are you kind of having this dual kind of paradoxical thing happening where you've got these feelings and you're expressing them, but then sort of the other part of you is like, this is irrational, and you're kind of in that space where
I can be, especially now, because now I'm fortunate enough to have met my partner, got a warm, safe place to live. The future's really bright. As Goggins will tell you, that you need to be prepared that could be pulled from under your feet at any time. But that's why we do the training, why we keep ourselves strong. So yeah, I could be sat I can be sat on the sofa at night. We've got a full tummy from dinner, just chilled out watching the sofa, and I'm like trembling, panicking. And and I can say to you, I know I'm anxious, and you get the obvious question someone asks you is, what are you anxious about? So I'm not. That's just a feeling I'm experiencing, but it's not connected to anything.
Wow.
That's my experience of it anyway. I guess it's unique for a lot of people. And yeah, I started to say this earlier, but I didn't. I saw it written somewhere, and again, I don't remember the exact words, but the way someone tried to describe it who doesn't know anything about anxiety is that you can be in bed under your warm duvet, cozy as anything, but what your brain and your body is telling you is that you're in the most dangerous situation you could ever be in. And it doesn't match. Those two things aren't in the same place.
I can't, it's such a, and you mentioned earlier, it's, there's a kind of feels like a real movement around mental health and anxiety that seems to me to correlate more and more with like social media and the way that we're all trying to sort of meet expectations of everything around us all the time. How has it been for you then going into the field of fitness where you're meeting people all the time, and those people are your responsibility to a degree, physically, injuries, the whole thing, you've got to instill a belief in them and for them to feel confident that how's that been? Does that empower you, or does that add a weight to you?
The fitness industry and the coaching industry is one of the most bizarre industries I've worked in, because my job now is talking about habits, food, exercise, which is something that we kind of all do every day, and it's something that I consider most days, but then also it's my job. But coming back to your point of that, so when I first started training, there's also something else which we haven't got onto yet, which is my qualifications in neuro-linguistic programming, which I'm really passionate about, which I don't know if you're familiar with NLP at all.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So I'm midway through my master practitioner at the moment, which I'm very proud of.
Wow. That's amazing.
So I've learned about sort of feeling congruent, which is feeling aligned, and how to address when you're not feeling aligned. And my eating habits aren't great. They're okay. What marker do you mark it against? Mine against someone else's. I think I eat too much chocolate.
Oh right, well I'm in that boat.
Which makes me feel not always congruent to my clients. originally when I first started PTing, and I had this battle in my head. This is a really long-winded way of answering your question, but I will get there.
That's why we're on a podcast.
So what I learned quite quickly by what I learned on some of my early NLP courses and PTing is that I don't have to be doing everything textbook to be able to provide this service. But one of the things that was important to me is that as long as I'm working on myself, as long as I'm practicing what I'm preaching, then I feel congruent. So even though I'm perhaps not doing everything as the textbook says, so for example, if you go back to like 5 a day, for example, so even if I don't eat my 5 a day, as long as I'm working towards eating my 5 a day, that makes me feel like I'm doing what I should be doing and feels like I've got the right to help other people. Mm-hmm. So as long as I'm continually working on improving myself, that's what makes me feel like I have got the right to support other people.
And I think that's a really important point, because the textbook, it's easy to look at what we should be doing. You know, we all know sleep is really important. We all know that sugar is terrible. We all know that alcohol is terrible. Mm. But they're also fun or tasty or good, or it's fun sometimes to meet an old friend and end up just staying up till 3 a.m. and drinking.
That's good for the soul.
Exactly. So this where you've arrived at this idea, which is something that I've picked up as well along the way, which is, so long as you are moving towards, holistically, you're moving towards, and you recognise, you're moving towards doing the things that you know are healthy and good, but you recognise that, every now and again, I mean, I've had it this weekend. I was just saying to my mate at a barbecue, I found myself in the biscuits the last couple of days, like, I don't know what, my wife's putting the children to bed, I'm squaring up downstairs, rebuilding the house after the children have smashed it to pieces. I finally get it done. I'm listening to a podcast maybe, or watching something on YouTube, and I'm making a herbal tea for me and my wife to go up to the upstairs, basically like 8:30 or 9, and wait for the kettle to boil, and I'm watching, and I end up opening the door, grabbing a biscuit. I'll just have a milk, whatever it is, a milk loaf biscuit, whatever, and I end up having like 6 biscuits. And the first one was quite tasty, and then I'm just like in beast mode of just like eating these things, and I'm having this thing in my head play out where I know, number one, right, there's nothing beneficial happening here now after that first biscuit. Yeah. The first biscuit, which was tasty and kind of like now I'm on like number 6, and I'm opening and I'm looking in again, I'm thinking, what's going on here? But then the other part of me is like, but I'm not doing this every day, and kind of that battle you have between, you've got to live as well, and I'm not saying standing at the kitchen cupboard eating biscuits is like living your best life.
I don't know.
But recognising sometimes, because if you cancel everything out, if you never have a drink, or if you never stop at a chippy, or if you never allow yourself that biscuit or wherever it is, I think so long as you know that the alarm clock's going off at 6:15 in the morning, and off you go, and you do, because if you eat them biscuits and then you skip the training in the morning because you don't feel up to it because you're full of whatever it is, then things start to slide, don't they? Yeah. Just being aware of yourself.
Yeah, it goes deeper than the biscuits. There's something really deep about the biscuits, isn't there? And that's why I did the NLP, because you got people that turn up to the door of the gym, right, I want to lose 2 stone, and you say to them, right, do this amount of movement, and it's more, you say it in a much more understandable and more detailed way than this, but right, you need to be looking at this exercise and this with your food, and then that's it. They're having McDonald's for breakfast and off they go, and they don't do anything. And that's why I did the NLP qualifications, because it's why don't we do the things that we say? I say to you, I want to eat less chocolate. Well, I can tell you now that I probably won't eat any less chocolate today because I said that. So, and people turn up, and I was just banging my head against the wall. I was like, how can someone sit there? They're saying, I want to lose 2 stone. They know they might need to lose 2 stone. I mean, being on a podcast is great because that opens a whole nother can of worms. I mean, the body positivity movement and all that is huge as well. There's just so many things you can talk about on this topic. But when someone sits there crying, saying, I need to lose 2 stone, and I think there are some people that may need to lose 2 stone.
Yeah.
Some people may not need to lose 2 stone. I think there's a sweet spot for everyone of mental and physical health. And I think that's a nice, unique crossroads for everyone. I think it's important to address that. One person's 10 stone might be healthy and someone else's 10 stone might be really unhealthy, you know. So I think that's really unique for the mind and body to meet in the right place. But when someone is sat in front of you and they know that they need to lose 2 stone for their health because they're not healthy, they may have been to the doctors, they may have been told that their health is deteriorating because of how much body fat they're carrying with them, and you advise them what to do and they just don't do it. What is underlying? That's only what's going on in here. That's nothing to do with not knowing how to do it. And that's what I'm passionate about.
So the NLP, when you sort out the NLP courses, was that solely professional to help clients, or was there a bit of that helping yourself as well with the anxiety and understanding habitual behaviours and what underpins some of our thought processes and cognitive
underpinning? Yes. Anxiety, no. I always make sure that I seek out a therapist if I need that support, and that's another thing that gives me a bit more confidence with my clients, because I know that I've got some really close friends, a really good support network, and I know where to turn if I need help for that. I might empathise with clients and say that I understand and I know what they're going through. But I try not to put on them for any
as you
health
said
and
in
support.
The beginning.
Yeah, because
but I think people watching, Joe, and current clients of yours, I'm sure, will probably be really quite empowered by knowing that you are fighting a good fight as well and pulling it off.
Yeah.
Because in the face of everything, you know, we all have assumptions, don't we? And we arrive at kind of judgments and assumptions because that's how we survive. That's how we have to navigate our environments.
Yeah.
And it's easy to look at somebody who's in a good body, you know, who's at the gym on time, always on time, and think, oh, I've just got it all together. But it's not necessarily always the case.
Some of them might argue with you that I'm always on time. Timekeeping's not my strong point, although I am getting better at it. The NLP helps to, underpin is the word I heard you say there. So NLP looks at, so you've got neuro-linguistic programming. So neuro is looking at what's going on in the brain. And I've still got a lot to learn. So if there's any people that know more about it than me out there, they might be able to help you a bit more. But so you've got neuro, which is the brain. You've got linguistics, which is languages. Important to recognise there that's the language that you use with yourself and with others, because most people have an internal dialogue going on. Yeah. And then programming, so that's more the habitual side. The fact, if I say to you, I'm not very good at timekeeping, so let's look at that as an example. If I say to you, I'm always late, an I am statement is I am. That's
you frame
when
yourself.
We say I am, that is strong. That's at an identity level. And so if someone says, "Oh, I'm overweight," well, how? Oh. Or if they change that sentence to, "I'm working towards the best version of me," every single time they say it, that can be powerful stuff.
Well, it's funny, you know. We won't digress too far, but there's a lot of NLP happening professionally in the environment at the moment, in the world, with messages and. Essentially programming a way of thinking about how things are at the moment. So it's really interesting. I've been looking into that, so it's sort of plays into what you're saying now. But in terms of the individual one-on-one, so when you're talking to a client and you've got a girl, and you said something earlier that struck me, which was if somebody's saying to you, "Look, I need to lose 2 stone because I want to be healthy." Excuse me, Joe. That's very different to a lot of us who maybe want to lose weight because we're going on holiday or we've got a wedding, or, you know, so that the very reason itself, how do you find that plays into when you're dealing with people?
It's a good question.
Does it change sort of how driven somebody is? If it's, because it would seem to me that there's something superficial and there's something sort of untruthful to ourselves when we want to just kind of get in shape for potentially photographs on holiday, as opposed to really knowing, shit, I need to get healthy. I would imagine there'd be more drive, but I don't know.
So I always try to shift my clients' goals on to try for it to be health focused or performance related, as opposed to a number on a scale or a photo. Mm-hmm. If someone comes with a photo and says, I used to look like this is what I want to look like, quite quickly I'm like, what was happening for you to look like that? Were you getting up early and going to the gym? Were you disciplined? What is it about that photo? Not the measurements, not the number that was on the scale. What was happening around that time? Did you love your job? Did you have a partner? Was your relationship happy? Were you sleeping well? What was happening? Let's get that listed out, because that's what comes
really
together.
Yeah.
And in terms of the holiday photographs, so for yourself, it might be important for you to have that image on that photo, and that might be something that drives you. For someone else, they may be wanting to search, like for myself, where I am personally at the moment is I want to find a spot where I'm eating well and just see what I look like. I look the way that I look, but I know that I'm not happy with the amount of chocolate that I eat. And that won't be a shock to most of my clients, because I've always chatted about that. Mm-hmm. But what I want is to be, I'm not striving for a six pack. I'm not striving for these things. What I'm striving for is a healthy relationship with food. So that's a behavior related outcome. So a behaviour related outcome is what I'm working towards. If you like a photo that you've got and that's what you want, that's your drive. And we're all so unique. So I think going all the way around that, what I have to find with my clients, or what I work towards finding with my clients, is what's important to them. Someone was saying, I just want to get to this way. I want to get to this way. I said, well, it's not happening. So let's work out, let's talk more about that. Actually, they were just going to that number because that's the number they thought they should be, because a few people around them had suggested that they might be towards that number. Mm-hmm. They weren't towards that. Said, right, well, let's forget that number. Let's just focus on healthy eating habits. Worked on healthy eating habits, and the number came down anyway. When we were working towards the number coming down, it didn't come down. Mm-hmm. And then when we stopped and just realised why we were working towards that number and said, well, let's not, then the number started coming down.
That's interesting. And do you see correlations with people who are on this quest to try and get healthy? Is there a correlation with success on that quest, with the good sleep, the routine sleep, the happy relationship? Let's not even get into the food and the exercise, but, the things that we take for granted, like sleep, like just a simple relationship that's just not volatile, that's not doesn't hold a sadness because, maybe it ran out of love a long time ago, but so many of us, we sort of stay in these safe environments, don't we? Do you ever see a correlation between where people are kind of more settled in a life, sort of seeing out their quest to get healthy, or is that?
It's not something I think we all sort of have, I don't know, me and my mum definitely do. We have these sort of like onboard surveys. Mm-hmm. I don't know, do you sort of like hold a little survey about things? One of the things we've often laughed about is in a random survey is wondering how many people are eating when they leave the supermarket car park.
Right, yeah.
Think, I just have a bit of this. That's one of my other random surveys that me and my mum like to do. And amongst those surveys, I haven't done what you just described.
Okay.
But what I think is, if we can get to find out someone's beliefs, core values, sense of higher purpose. So things like, does someone want to become healthy to become a parent? Does someone want to be, I want to be the healthiest I can be so that I can be the truest personal trainer and coach in my belief system. Mm-hmm. I think if we can get to beliefs, values, sense of higher purpose, that's when you get those things right. I think if you can get those things right, that's when you get
everything else falls in place.
Yeah.